one of the things about self-producing and then choosing to um, uh, sort of publish your special, is that the right word? Whatever, release your special on your own platform or through your own platform, is that you always think, well, what's the PR around it? Because if it's on one of the streamers, there's all these clips online and and this and there's like a big hoo ha ha. And you think, well, how am I going to do that? And it was very much part of my planning was to have a plan because ideally you want to duplicate this. So you want to have a protocol in place. This is how we film. This is how we launch. This is how it works. And that isn't always easy. And then when you were like, do you want to do the podcast? I was like, excellent, because this is part of that whole personal PR package that all comics have to do when they self-release a self-release sounds like wanking. Uh, Not what I meant. Sorry, when they release their special on their own. Sorry.
But comedy, it's all completely changed, Sindhu, hasn't it? I mean, it's gone from, when I say power, control is maybe the right word, but it's all in the hands of the comedian these days.
I don't know if it's all in the hands of the comedian. It's ideally there's more that a comedian can do because of the internet. But I mean, I still think that, if your special is out on one of the big streamers, that the profile of that is different. The sort of support around it is different. And I think in the mind of people, it's like, oh, this comic has made it. Whereas if you do it yourself, then there's a lot of work that goes into doing it yourself, as I am discovering. Absolutely not work that you have to do on your own because there's so many wonderful, helpful people. But there's the psychological part of saying, right, I have an audience and they will come. And then there's the audience who doesn't know me and somehow they will also come. And that is very much a relationship you have to develop with your social media, you know.
Are you are you enjoying the autonomy though, rather than being answerable to
Well,
a committee of people?
well, I mean, uh there's already a committee of people. There's Turtle Canyon who, and this is a committee I love, by the way. So it's Turtle Canyon who have co-produced the show. So just to get into it, Alphabet was fully funded by me and co-produced by myself and Turtle Canyon, who were the people that I had gone to for the filming. And it's directed by Stuart Laws of Turtle Canyon, with additional help from a few people. The original show was directed by Paul Byrne, uh, the one and only Paul Byrne. Um, and I should say the late Paul Byrne. And also I got some inputs from uh, some other comedians that we know and other directors just on the day. And they're all actually, when you watch it, wait till the end credits because there's some very funny, and within the circuit, people will be like, ha ha, because I mean, you know how you walk into a green room and there's all these inside jokes that you only know because you were at the last gig with this person, and it's kind of like that. It's quite funny. I love doing that. So there's already a committee, but yeah, we're all working on it together. Listen, if I if when I wanted to put out this show, which was a very specific moment in time that I wanted to do that, and we can talk about why, I had various streamers lined up, I would have easily given it to them. And because, like I said, there's profile, you get to say, I have a special here, I have a special there. There was some waiting that was going to have to happen, and I didn't want to wait. So I made a decision. I looked around and I saw that there were other comics that I greatly respect who have put out their own stuff. And I thought, well, if it's been done. And I was very committed to my timeline. So I did it myself. So when you ask me, well, am I enjoying the autonomy? I guess so. I mean, it really depends how it all goes. I suspect, though, that it will always feel to me like the correct thing to have done, given that there were certain hard lines in the sand that I didn't want to move around. Yeah.
So please explain why was the timing important to you then, rather than go with a streamer and wait X amount of weeks or months?
Well, because it would have been months. And you know how streamers are, they have a slate and they say, look, we're full up here and so on. So the thing is, this show was toured in the UK several years ago, in its original form. It's been slightly modified. And at the time um, that it toured, uh, my mother was unwell. And she'd had a stroke and she was in the hospital, and I was flying back and forth from tour to India. And then my mother passed away at the end, during the tour. And that was very, very tough for me. Um, and then very quickly after that, my sister passed away. And the year after that, or just a year after that, inside of a year, my father passed away. And I haven't really talked about this, so this is your podcast, and so I'll explain. So in less than 2.5 years, the three people, I'm the youngest, the three people that are responsible, both on purpose and not on purpose, for me being having anything funny to say, were all gone. And it didn't occur to me for a while that this was the last show I would have written where the people I'm talking about are, are not there. And to me, that was very momentous because I don't think I've ever seen myself as a standalone individual. I've always seen myself as an extension of our family of four. And I, and then I had several movies in the pipeline, so I didn't do anything with Alphabet. I let it sit. And then when the sort of dust settled on all my filming, and it became clear to me that in order to write anything else, I had to mark the enormous gratitude I have to my parents and my sister for my life. And in order to do that, I had to sort of gift Alphabet um, to them. In India, we have this notion of Guru Dakshina. When you go to meet your guru, your teacher, you always take a gift. And I feel that my parents and my sister, both wittingly and unwittingly, have been my comedy gurus. Um, and I had, and so I had to take them an offering before I could really go forward. And I didn't have to do it when they were alive because I was always talking to them. And my sister was, I was always so scared. There's a particular story in Alphabet that I was so scared. I was like, I can never say this in public. She'll kill me. And my mother was like, well, she already hates you, so it doesn't matter. And I'm like, bro, come on. And so, but I never got a chance to even piss her off. And so I thought, right, I just felt I couldn't move forward. I could, so I had to wrap it like a gift and offer it up to them and say, this is like a homage to them. And a lot of the show, the stage, the colors, it's like a gift. The It's a very specific color. And I always think of, those gifts you get with the thick gold ribbon, and it's like a satin kind of nice paper, like old-fashioned gifts. So we worked very much on making the set feel like that, um, in terms of the fabrics and the colors that we chose. And it was genuinely because I felt, well, I have no more to say until this has been duly noted and offered up. And it was a gift from me also to my, to people who like to laugh, my wonderful audience and the new audience I hope to get, because when you lose, when you face grief from bereavement in your close family, um, it's almost impossible to know how to laugh, but you gotta laugh.
Your your comedy and your family so synonymous. The listener couldn't see me literally wiping my eyes as Cindy was talking there, just for full transparency. But your family is so synonymous with your comedy. They are. we all feel like we know those members of your family because the way in which you speak about them, there's such beauty in your truth there, Cindy. While you were talking, I was remembering stories that you told me about your parents. I mean, that's what you've done there. What a beautiful thing, Cindy.
Yeah, I mean, we all find ways to move. You got to move, because life is like a river. It goes in one direction. And there's no point sitting on the banks and just crying. You got to move. And I think this uh, putting alphabet out in the world is a very essential part of me moving forward and continuing to believe in being funny. Yeah, I mean,
What
funnily, it's so crazy because it's difficult for me to express how much approval I always needed from, especially from my mother. And said, "Do you think this is funny? Do you think this is funny?" I also didn't want my dad to get angry that I was going to tell this story because he didn't think it was very respectful to let out family secrets like that. It was a story about my sister and she would have been fucking furious. So but I thought, I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to tell them, and we're going to have this big kind of moment where everyone has to get honest. And I never got that. And it's not that I never got it. As a family, we didn't get it. So uh yeah.
what was the family reaction like when you went from working in the world of finance? Then there's the soccer mum era. Then there's comedy Sindhu. What was the family reaction like for each step of that journey?
Well, my mother was very much like, of course, this is like the first time she saw me on stage. Well, I didn't tell anyone for the longest time. I just never said anything because I didn't tell my husband, that. I would just go out and say, I'm going out in the evening. And he was always traveling and I would just go do it. And then it was like it was and then of course he found out that I was gigging and he was like, "What?" And then I told my mom and she didn't really know what stand up was. She was like, "You get on stage and you tell jokes." And she's like, "It tracks, you are always trying to be funny, trying." And my father it was only when I got on BBC Comedy Final, like when he saw that I was on the BBC, he thought it was a hobby that had gotten out of hand complete. When I did Matilda, he was like, "Okay, this has to stop. What are you doing?" Like he thought it was a hobby that had just become deranged. Um, and my sister, her reaction to most things I did was sort of like, you fucking idiot, what are you doing? Like she was always like, "What? Oh, for fuck's sake, really?" But then she was like, "Yeah, you were always trying to be funny." And I used to say, "Why is everyone saying trying to be funny? Like, why is no one saying I'm funny?" And my sister was like, "Oh, please." But she was very, 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 very happy for me because she was like, "I've seen you she was much older than me. She's like, "I've seen you your whole life running into rooms of people being like, if I'm funny, they'll like me." And I used to get bullied in school, and she knew that I used to use being funny as a way to not get beat up. Not that it ever stopped her from giving me a few punches whenever she felt like, but elder siblings, what are you going to do? They give zero shits. Um, so I think by the time the movie stuff rolled in, my mother was, my mother never saw me do Matilda. She passed away. But she was sort of like, she said to me when she once saw me on stage in India, it was probably 2017, and she was in the audience, and it was a huge show, and it was televised on in some other like show about comedians, and they had a clip of me, and then they panned to my mother watching me, and she was laughing. And then I remember when I came off stage, she said to me, uh, "Ek baat batao, shall I tell you something?" Which I don't know why she ever said that because she always told you whatever. Like, why are you asking me? You're going to say it. Anyway, she said, "Ek baat batao, tum kasam khao, like swear on me that you will never stop doing this." Because she said, when you went on stage, I saw my daughter getting on stage, but then the person I saw on stage with all of that sparkle and control, she said, "It wasn't my daughter, you're a star."
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Oh, Cindy,
And
what are you doing to me?
sorry, sorry, sorry.
Oh god!
Yeah. She said, "You're a star." And she said, "And then when you came off stage, you were just Sindhu again. So don't," she said, "Kasam khao. Swear on me you won't stop because this is what you're here for." So, to hear that from your parent, especially when you yourself are a parent and it's something so outside the realm of anything you thought you'd do or you were that was expected of you. I didn't need anyone after that to tell me, whether I was good at this or not. It didn't matter. It was like mom saw me completely. And so, yeah, and she was saying, like when I won something or when I was a BBC finalist, I would call and say, oh, BBC finalist. And she would say, oh, that's nothing. You will go high in the sky. And I'd be like, all right. She said, that's nothing. Abhi to tumhare naam sitaron mein honge. Your name will be with stars. Don't call me with this small, small business. I'm like, oh, she had this weird kind of thing. So,
I mean, you
but
don't need me
also,
to tell you this. She was right.
well, I mean, when I win an Oscar or a BAFTA, then I'll be like, mom was right. Or when my comedy special gets an Emmy, then I'll be like, ah, mom was right. But what was funny was my dad at least would be like, oh, that's fantastic and well done, you. My mom was like, "Oh, you woke me up from my nap for this small piece of information. Call me when you've got a Grammy or whatever." I'm like, Grammys are for musicians, but okay. I don't know what you want.
You could get a Grammy for best comedy special.
Okay,
That's
great. Well,
so everything that's happened recently, like these last few months. There's a to the listener. I mean, you might know the listener may know this already, but you were interviewed in like the Hollywood Reporter. I mean, this there was there was a the USA stuff was fascinating. I know Tim's the same. Tim and I were sort of obsessed with America and Americana. Can you relate to that?
I think because when I grew up, I went to an American school and I watched American television when I was very young. I had nothing to do with the UK, so I didn't, like for me, I hadn't watched anything. What is Blue Peter? Who knows? I had no idea. I only knew like Electric Company and American shows and all that stuff. Um, but in terms of my relationship to North America in my current profession and my only profession now, I hope. I don't really want to go into something complex, become a surgeon. Like what? Um, it's really about, it's a big market, and I have a lot of audience there that are not just from the diaspora, they're from everywhere. And to me, I look at the world as where are lots of people wanting to hear jokes from me, and where are they not? And let's get them also in, and let's all be in on the joke here. So America has been very, very kind to me. I went there last year for tours that a tour that I broke into two parts, and it sold out. And I mean, I did 18, 19 cities altogether, and it was fantastic. The movie stuff and the Amazon TV show, I mean, they were American productions in some ways. Not Matilda, that was a UK production, but Pradeep's of Pittsburgh was an American one. So I got exposed to it that way. Um, yeah, so I have only, it's been very kind to me. They've been very, very generous in their coming out, buying tickets. Uh, and I do think, well, it's interesting because you know how American comedians and sort of if you make it in America, isn't there that song also? New York, if you make it here, you can make it anywhere, that whole
That's
thing.
right.
Uh, and just it's I mean, I get that. And I think that is, especially for someone who appeals to the diaspora, because they also look at the sort of Americana culture. Having said that, I think I always want to be based in the UK. Like this is this is my comedy birthplace. And I think a lot of my sensibilities about how to engage as a performer have more in common with the UK then like I don't know if it will happen, so correct me later in the future, but the idea of doing a show and like selling merch, I'm like, oh my God, like it's not that it's bad, of course it makes you money, but I feel it's a little bit like, yikes, like who would buy a cup with some shit I'd said on it, like just strikes me as, do you know what I mean? Because in America, when they come out, they're like, I'm here, I'm a performer, let's go, let's go. I have that before I get on stage. But in general, I'm like, I just am catching the train to go to a gig in Brighton. Do you know what I mean?
There, there are people listening thinking, I would buy that tea towel or keyring with
Yeah,
some
no,
some
and I mean,
Sinduisms.
yeah, but as in it could happen, but it's not part of how I see
Yeah, for
my
sure.
profile getting bigger. But of course, listen, man, if you start going to the US and you start doing all the late night talk shows there and this and that, um, it's huge for your career. And I'm not saying I don't want to do that. It's just not, you know how it is. Like it's more self-deprecating out here. And that's fine for me. That's fine.
Yeah, because I've heard there's one. Someone said to me the difference between America and look, a lot of my favourite comedians are Americans. There's no shade here,
Mm,
but
mm-mm.
generally speaking, in America, when you're and I say this as an MC, when you're introducing the American act, they want the credits listed.
Oh,
You've seen him in, and then over here it's like, please do not mention
do
my
not.
credits.
You know, I did a gig in New York at Caroline's before it closed down or whatever, in like not last year, the year before. And I just walked in, or I they had set it up for me, and it was sort of a Times Square audience, you know. Not only did okay, first of all, let's just set this up. The comic who went before me was making a lot of jokes about her sexual interest in Hitler. And I was like, oh my goodness, because you know, you always know if a comic has gone before you, most of the time you're like, okay, but if it's so on one end of a spectrum, you're like, I don't really understand where I'm gonna be like, I have a teenager, wah, wah. Like what? Anyway, that was already making me nervous. Then before going on, the MC asked me, what do you want me to say? And I said, oh, just Sindhu Vee. And she's like, don't you have any credits? And I was like, what? I didn't even understand. I was like, what? She's like, what have you been on? And I was like, oh. So I was like, I don't know, live at the Apollo. She was like, what? And I was like, oh my goodness. So I didn't get any credits. Also because I was sort of like as soon as she said, do you have credits? And she explained what she meant, I started going into like a fringe aneurysm in my head because I was like,
Yeah,
who says that, right?
yeah.
Then I get on stage and I open by saying that I'm married to a Dane, but I'm from the UK, but I'm from India. Let me tell you, that Times Square audience was like, this bitch is too complicated. Where the fuck is Denmark? What are you talking about?
Oh God!
And they hated me. They hated me so hard. And I thought to myself, this is the United States. I cannot do like complex geography. I've already thrown three countries in there.
Yeah.
And instead of saying England, I said the UK. They're like, where's that? What? I was like, oh my God. So anyway, they hated me. And maybe they would have hated me less if I had a credit. Who knows?
It's wild, isn't it?
It is. And listen, I'm someone who's I'm a realist. You play the game. You don't go to a hockey game with a basketball. That's stupid. So
Yep.
from now on, when I go to, if I, you know, when I next go to a club in the US, I will be rolling out those credits. I will be like, hey, you know, Ohio, like just shit they know. And like my husband's from Ohio, like not my husband is from Denmark. Just gonna keep it really simple. And by the way,
You loved her
any
in Matilda. You know, it's
yeah,
gonna be all
no,
that.
and also to any Americans listening to this, there's no shade. I'm just telling you the technical difficulties that I have faced. Yeah,
I think. I mean, I know quite a few UK acts who've. Sorry, England acts who've.
yeah, exactly.
But they've had that exact same problem. You know, it's and it's so it goes against. And again, look, again, no shade to any Americans, but that thing of listing credits, it just goes against. I think British comedians are a really self-deprecating lot, and as soon as you start going down that route of you love her in this, you saw her in this, your toes are. I mean, even the thought of it, my toes are curling. You know, it's just
And also, I always get nervous because it's like then the pressure is on to not fuck up because you've been in all this other stuff, and you're like, yeah, but that was not connected to how this night is going to go. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah. So you know, listen. Uh, I hope every single person in America buys my special for
So
sure.
with America, and you know, it had gone so well out there, and I know, you know that I'm sure there's plans to do even more out there. So the people buying tickets, is that from the clips that have gone? Is it a combination? Because I mean, I genuinely don't know what the answer is. Combination of say Matilda clips going viral, expats, people knowing that there's a UK profile? I would love to know.
I think it's primarily from social media, from clips and over time, especially in COVID, I think when I Kay Kurd, a comedian here in the UK, big big fan of his, we're friends. He had told me to get on TikTok and I was like, that's for children. And he was like, don't be an old lady, get on fucking TikTok. And I did. And I did just weird mom posts in the beginning. I was so self-conscious that I put filters and I have hats on and it's just, I mean, looking back, I'm just like, oh my God, the cringe factor is wild. Now I just get on and say what I have to say, and I don't even do TikTok as that much anymore. But I think a lot of people had time and they all turned to the internet, to laugh. And I think they saw my clips, and then that built over time. And I think it was because of that they bought tickets when I first went out there with the show.
Now, we know UK acts who've gone out there, and Taskmaster has played a big part in.
Yeah, well, I haven't even done Taskmaster.
Now, surely Sindhu Vee Taskmaster, that, that's the gift that the universe is waiting for.
Listen, we're all waiting. We're all waiting here, and let's see what happens. I always think, I mean, I don't take well to not getting a role in a casting if I've got to the final two people and then I don't get it. I react extremely badly to that. You should know. People in this house are not allowed to watch that show. I mean, there's strict rules. I once caught my daughters giggling at like quite late at night, and I was going up to my room, and I was like, "Oh," and I opened the door, and they were under a duvet with like a laptop, and I was like, "What are they doing?" And when I said, "Are you guys okay?" And then one of them immediately burst into tears, just without the other one said, "Mom, we're sorry, we're sorry." I was like, "What are they doing under that duvet?" Turns out they were watching a show that I'd banned in the house because I hadn't got the part, and they loved the show, and they were just sneaking around watching it under the duvet, and they were so contrite and wailing and weeping, and I was like, "Oh fuck it, I got over it, fine." So I don't take well to that at all. In terms of being booked for big, TV shows in the UK, I figure there must be a good reason, you know. I mean, I'm very, very competitive, so maybe they're like, she's psycho. We can't have her on because she'll ruin the sort of production of the show. I don't know. But the thing is, I always think when the time is right, then then they will come. Otherwise, maybe they never come. I don't know, but I I feel so uh I've always felt very supported by the entire comedy community here in the UK. And I feel very much like we help each other out a lot. I
I
haven't really
agree.
ex I haven't experienced any animosity or any sense of, not wanting, like any sense of hierarchy or that makes me think that, oh, why didn't I get this? I think, well, I guess there's some good reason. And then, and I can also say this because I've been very busy. I'm sure if I wasn't doing anything else and not getting booked on any shows, I'd be like, the fuck. I think it's always important when you have something positive to say to explain why you're that positive. Because no one is sitting in their house just being positive. Please, please. Nobody, you know?
I mean,
So I
I mean,
feel like I've been busy.
I was going to say, you say you've been busy, mate. Your career. I've said this to your face before. Meryl Streep would give your career a round of applause. I mean, I mean, I
That's
know
so
you're not the sort of
very,
person that's. I know you're not the sort of person that stops to smell the roses because then, as you say, the river's going in one direction.
yeah.
Nevertheless, let me pat you on the back. You are. It's not for want of. It's not like you are not sat at home waiting for this to ring. I mean, it's all going great.
Yeah, and I'm always doing like I'm always doing something of like apart from the work I'm given, I'm always doing something. And I think actually this is a really good time to talk about this is that the entire decision to self-produce this special and to get involved at every level is because of a idea ideas about, as you said when we started, what would it look like if if comedians in the UK were able to um, put their specials out in a way that makes economic sense to them directly to their audience. Because you see, I think, listen, if you look on Netflix for comedy specials, there's American comedians on there with comedy specials. I've never heard of these comedians, which is not to say they're not good comics. It's just that the net for a Netflix special, the net, haha, is spread very wide in the United States, right? Whereas here, the number of UK comics who have a Netflix special, you can count on two hands,
Agreed.
right? And every time someone gets a Netflix special here, we're literally like, oh my God, it's the holy grail, right?
Yeah.
Whereas there's comedians in the US who probably are not, we don't know their names, but they have a Netflix special. And I think it's the same with Prime, because I think they are sort of America centric and they spread a very wide net. We don't have something like that here in the UK, which has the same profile or pays the same to get specials out. And we're just a smaller market. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Um, and so I think, so I've been, so, I thought a lot about given how, given how ticket sales have worked for me through social media, I've thought a lot about, well, how can we make this how can we just slightly widen up the possibility for UK comics to have a way to have a special and harness the power of the internet, because that ain't going anywhere, and both make some money and get their stuff out. And I thought, well, and I was thinking a lot about this a couple of years ago. And so when the time came, I thought, well, best put my money where my mouth is and make myself a guinea pig of a system. And so, when I wasn't acting or when I didn't have something to do on television, I was sitting and thinking about this and writing it and thinking what are the things and meeting people and saying, what is it, because of course, there's a very obvious thing is money in, money out. But that's not what a production does. A production has to do many different things, and there has to be other ways to raise capital because most comics can't afford. So then how do you incentivize them? What's their equity stake? Things like that. So I'm also always doing something in my head. And then, of course, I've got three kids. So that always keeps me busy.
So on Friday, this is out as people. So people go to your website, and it's as simple
Yes.
as clicking on the website and buying it from there.
Yes. So you go on my website, and there will be literally on the Friday, the first thing you will see is, you know, buy or play, and you press it, and it will um, take you to a place where you can purchase, and then you'll get a code, and that code will allow you to watch it uh, many, many times in one calendar year. I want to say, I mean, because I'm now thinking that there was a number, and I was like, no, let's increase it. Because also for me, I do believe that it's very important to keep an eye on the economics of one's art. And insofar as people say to me, oh, you're an artist, that's how I use the word art. Uh, Insofar as my comedy is my art, I do think it's important to keep an eye on the economics of it all. And so I don't want to lose money on Alphabet, but Alphabet is a gift. It's a gift to me, it's a gift from me. So so I've tried to price it in a way that is very accessible, and and I have said that people should be able to watch it many, many times in a year on that same code, because Alphabet comes out of a time in our lives, it was a COVID time. It comes out of the growing up that you do when your parents go away. It comes out of the sense that many, many of us have had, many people, when you lose a sibling and when you're the only one left in your family of origin. And those are not things that are, I think, those are things that make Alphabet, I think, for everybody. And I want to make sure that everybody can get a hold of it um, as easily as possible.
That gifting thing, because even it's only now that you say it, but of course it all makes sense now. Even the set design, the way the letters come down, it is gift wrapping, isn't it?
It is, and you know, huge kudos to the Turtle Canyon guys who sat with me while I was talking about it, and then found the right set designer. And to see something I had in my mind come alive in 3D was truly mesmerizing, truly mesmerizing. And you know, I think one thing I want to say, and I do hope that that other comedians who want to do their own special hear this. It's okay to be very specific about your vision. It's okay. And you have to work with a team that respects and not just respects it, but understands it. Just because you're not putting your special out on some gigantic platform and your profile is not, you know, in the top 5 comedians in the country that are doing these things, doesn't mean your work deserves any less meticulous attention to detail. So that is something that you have to believe and then go into the process. And you know, you can film specials at different prices in different price brackets.
Yep.
But you have to remember, and I really hope that comedians who want to do this are listening to this. When you walk into a comedy club, you don't get to choose the decor, the this. You don't get to choose who's drunk in the audience, but we get on stage and we do our best and we're the funniest, right? And that's how we get an audience. So always trust in the fact that your jokes are the thing that are going to is the thing that's going to draw people in. So even if you can't film a special that's the hugest budget that you might have got from a big streamer, you can definitely do better than some sweaty club in buttfuck where you were still the funniest comic on the bill. Do you know? You have to
I
have
do.
that faith that ultimately it's your jokes that are doing the hardest work. Never forget that. Never forget that.
Now, I promise your bank manager hasn't asked me to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How are you going to, right, with a view to the next special? Now, as I say, the Meryl Streep comment is real. How how are you planning on? Let's just say, is the plan say 2026 tour, 2027 tour, or is that not humanly possible because of the TV, the movies, and so on?
No, no, I'm going on tour next year. And it's my first global tour, so I'm excited.
Global tour.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put it all together. But you know, I am very much someone who believes that until things are not signed, don't so it is my intention to do my first global tour in 2026.
Brilliant.
It's my intention to start it in the United States and then work my way around. And this time I will even go to Australia. That is my intention. I've never been because it's so far. Australia is so far, but I will do it. And I'm gonna, you know, break it up with like I'm gonna make lots of stops. I don't like these 15-hour flights and all, just no chance. So I'm gonna make lots of stops and tell jokes along the way. And then um and then the headliner of that tour will of course be my beloved United Kingdom. And so, but this is my intention, and absolutely, because you know, I filmed Alphabet. We got it into production, we got it in the pipeline, and then it was almost like I was activated to start writing. And while you've seen some of the works in progress that I'm doing, and those are constantly modifying. I mean, literally, there's stuff I said in Jam that I'm like, oh, do I even want to say that now? But you know, that's what a work in progress is.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to Edinburgh this year after 2 years, I think, to do a work in progress for a couple of weeks, going to the Fringe, and we take it from there. And then it's just, you know, business as usual as a comic.
I mean, look, we if you need more work in progress shows, we Tim and I know a place.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna maybe not bore everyone on the podcast with taking out my calendar, but yeah, I will be getting in touch with you about that.
Now, Sindhu, we have a lot of Taskmaster fans listening to this show, and so just for a sense of completion, I can hear them going. Please, do I take it? I know it didn't work out last time, but do I take it if it is logistically possible? The door is open to that.
Oh yes. Yes, I mean it's such an iconic show, you know, from the birthplace of comedy, Sindhu. So like it's, like why wouldn't you? I still remember when I started in comedy and there was like you could go to places like Angel and your 5 minutes of fame, you were a new act. And then I remember talking to someone uh who said to me, well, eventually after you do Angel, and then you can get Mark at Top Secret to look at your video, and eventually, and then you start becoming a paid comic, and then you start getting middle spots. So, like 50,000 years from today, basically, 50 years from now, one day you can do rooms like, and the first name they said was ABC Comedy. And I remember because I used to write everything down, right? So I remember taking out my book. I had a book of like comedy joke notes, and I had a book of to do, right? And on my to do list was like every Wednesday, I would email the same clubs and be like, please, can I come? And they wouldn't reply. And every Wednesday, I would do that. And on that, I wrote clubs for future when I have paid middle spots. And I put A, B, C comedy. I did not know it was called Always Be Comedy. I didn't know what it was. It was ABC Comedy. So I put A, B, C Comedy. And it was always in my book. So, there are iconic things like ABC Comedy, like Live at the Apollo, like Taskmaster. And I've got some of them, and I'm waiting for the rest of them.
Well, look, Sindhu, as you know that we've got this phrase Sindhu Vee comedy for a reason. The Venn diagram is essentially a circle, and it's always with you. It's twofold. It's great to see you on stage, but it's just great to as important for me. It's great to see you as a dude. So look,
Yeah,
thanks for
so,
everything.
and no, thank you for this.
Sindhu, I refuse to believe that this is not a thing, or at least it doesn't exist somewhere. But please tell me you've at least written the pitch for your life story as a TV show.
My life story.
No, well, hang on.
Uh,
What I mean is the investment banker who becomes the soccer mom, who becomes the comedy star, who becomes Meryl Streep. Surely.
no, I mean, the only bit that I've written is where I turn into a older white lady called Meryl. That's the bit I've written. The rest, what do you no, of course not. No, I don't have the life story, but I do have, and I've had for a very long time, a script in in process, in writing process with Rough Cut. And it's really it's a version of all the things you hear me say on stage. It's about cross-cultural marriage, it's about kids, and it keeps changing because my kids keep getting older and I keep not sitting down and finishing the script because I'm acting or doing something else. But eventually that'll happen, or they'll fire me and be like, bitch, just go. You're not doing the work. Just go. So, but that's it. No, I think before I do anything else, I have to sit down and um, write something about that really can consolidate all the things that I've been saying about my mother. Oh, for God's sake.
But you're a
Uh,
tell me you're a comedian in this project.
no, I'm just me. I no, this is from my soccer mom era.
Right, okay, fine.
Yeah.
So it's not like Sindhu, but it's not like Seinfeld, but Sindhu, where you're a working comedian in it.
No, no, no. I'm just a soccer mom, having just breakdown after breakdown about like big life questions. So I always think there's a lot of characters in what we're writing that are way funnier than I think me doing stand up.
Amazing. Well, look, we'll watch this space.
Watch this space, absolutely. And thank you for allowing the sort of chaos of this podcast with me talking to someone completely off camera who has nothing to do with anything.
The whole thing was honestly perfect. Sindhu, thank you as always. Great to see you, and we'll
Great.
see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.